sponsors. It's time to start. Enjoy the show.
Well, welcome in everyone to Betting Weekly Live. It is Tuesday, the 29th of April. It's Champions League semi-final day, which means one thing. It's Steve Wyss joined by Will White. Will, are you excited for the semi-finals? Hope you are.
Yes, mate, big time. Good day to you and good day to all the viewers out there. Get your questions in. I'm sure we're all excited about this first leg and tomorrow's. So let's get straight into it, shall we?
Yeah, welcome in everyone. Ming Chung says Arsenal to be taught a lesson today? Question mark. Let's see about that one. Good morning to Daniel Lucani, Adam Thompson, DCB as well. Rick the Brick, howdy to you. Ray Burke as well. What does everyone think about the Champions League semi-finals? Who's going to win them? What the best bets? Later on the show, stay tuned for my assessment of the Swedish Allsvenskan game later as well. Malmo are in action. Tobias Depler is very, very excited for the semi-finals. Dave Clark as well. This is the state of play in terms of the actual draw. Arsenal versus PSG, Barcelona against Inter Milan. The final is in Munich. So, it's been a long, long slog to get to this stage of the tournament, Will. There's been more matches than ever. I'm sure there's people out there with outright tickets on all of these teams. I think especially PSG and Inter. Got a feeling there might be some big price tickets on there. PSG were backable, in the teens. Inter Milan were well above, I think, 20-1 at some point. Arsenal, Barcelona have always been two of the big favourites, in fairness. And this is the state of play in terms of the winner. Pretty close market. I think it's a pretty close market in general. Barcelona plus 200, PSG just a bit above that. Inter is still the big outside dog at plus 450, but it's not a massive price. I ask you this every time a new round starts, but is it too late still to get involved in the outright futures market? There might be people out there who want to pick one of these four and cheer them on.
It's getting pretty late, isn't it? I mean, the market has now had at least 8 months to bash itself into shape from liquidity and money coming in from all different types of bettors with different types of opinions in different markets, geographical, data-driven approaches, feel-based, kind of more specific human skill-based angles. And we are where we are now in what is really a very competitive betting heat. And it really has been all season, right? I remember at the beginning of the season, Real Madrid were were backed in really heavy. I think they kind of rivaled Man City for favoritism at the beginning of the season. But that kind of soon unraveled itself as Real Madrid kind of turned out to not be as good as we expected. And then obviously City did what they did. So we are left with what is a very competitive betting heat, which on the one hand you would look at and think, well, we've got three teams here that are pretty much the same price. And you could use your time to try and figure out which of those should be favourites, or you could back the underdog. But I prefer to put my efforts at this point in the tournament into specific matches and trying to really do a deep dive into all of the potential prop markets that were being offered. Bet Rivers have a bunch on offer, and often at this point in a tournament, that's where you're going to find the value. It's kind of hard to beat these markets, right?
Do you know, my one regret in the futures market is not taking PSG when they were losing to Liverpool. That's the one that I wish I had again. I've had Inter Milan in my pocket for a while, but yeah, I know a lot of shrewd bettors did get on PSG after that moment. I honestly didn't think they could turn it. Not many teams go to Anfield and actually win on a European night. So I just thought I'd play the percentages down the years, really. But fair play for those who did back them at that moment. Got some big prices. I think 18-1, wasn't it? Well, in general, maybe even more in some parts. I don't. In terms of this futures now, I wouldn't get involved. I think the odds look about right, and you're right. Maybe focus on the individual matches. There's going to be a lot of money staked on these two semi-finals, that's for sure. We're going to have all the betting breakdowns and stuff. There's a lot of money being staked on several sports at the minute. Some big bets yesterday, $31,000 on the Mets money line against the Nationals. That was a winner. Biggest soccer bet was in Serie A, Udinese, plus a half on the Asian handicap at plus 107, 10,000 I don't know if that was your money or not, Will, because they weren't fancy the Udinese at all to get anything. So fair play there. Plus money winner at plus 0.5 Asian handicap. Bit of a surprise result, actually, wasn't it? 0-0. We've got notable Tuesday live streams. Burton Albion against Wigan Athletic in League One, for those who want that. ATP and WTA Madrid. The power's back on in Madrid, I think, now, isn't it? So you can watch the tennis from Madrid. Malmo Osters as well in Allsvenskan. We'll talk about that match later. Just going through some of the comments. There was a funny one, actually, from, was it Tobias Debla? I'm almost blackouting, and I think Nigel should buy you in Madrid, Tobias. Or somewhere on the Iberian Peninsula. Good day to Foxy, Paul Laguna, indeed. Leeds, hopefully we'll win the league now, Paul. I know you've got money on Leeds to win the championship this season, and he's got money on PSG. Jake, good to see you. Brave man to go against PSG versus Barca final now. He says he's got PSG at 18-1. Adam Thompson, difficult game to call tonight. He feels Arsenal to score exactly 2 goals at plus 250 is a generous price. There's going to be all sorts, loads of markets now that we can get on. There's loads of comments. Keep putting them in. We're going to talk about the first match now. We're going to really break down this game today. A little bit of talk about the Inter game as well, but we're going to save the in-depth tomorrow. But Arsenal against PSG. It's been a pretty stable market, this. Arsenal plus 110 on the money line to win at the Emirates Stadium today. The ties plus 255. PSG plus 240. Over under goals line right on the 2.5 mark, split down the middle. So I think let's start here with sort of the main money line and Asian lines here. Arsenal plus 110. In terms of you could back -0.5, +0.5, -0.25, +0.25. Will plus 110 Arsenal? I mean, we're talking fine margins now. Is that how you would set the price for them in this first leg?
Well, first of all, these two did play back in October in the league stage, and the line that day was Arsenal -0.75 of a goal, and they're -0.25 of a goal today. So that's a big move, right? Half a goal. But it probably is justified. I mean, PSG are a much more formidable and more functioning machine than they were back in October. Obviously, Luis Enrique has had more time to drill this team strategically and to kind of put the pieces in the right place, especially after Mbappe left in the summer. But if we examine that match back in October, it was pretty tight. Arsenal won 2-0. They went up 2-0 about halfway through the first half and then kind of tried to shut the game down. So it ended with 1.1 total XG, which is very low. And PSG having 65% possession, which is pretty high, but with the caveat of they were 2-0 down early, and perhaps Arteta was happy to let PSG have the ball and kind of defend a 2-goal lead. So, how much emphasis we should put on that match as to how this one is likely to play out, I don't really know myself. But to kind of like go about the houses and come back to a conclusion, I think the line is about right. I think the Asian line -0.25 with Arsenal slight favourites is about right, and obviously that would transpose to the match, to the win-draw-win odds as well. Remember, PSG went off draw no bet away to Liverpool in the round of 16, albeit they were 1-0 down unjustifiably from the first leg. So there was some kind of comeback factor weighted into that price. And then PSG went off -0.25 away at Villa with the same kind of comeback bias for Villa there. So if you kind of use that as a market implied or a comparison, this line is also about right. I think, Arsenal are probably about half a goal better than Aston Villa, and are probably a similar kind of quality team, standard team to Liverpool, albeit Liverpool ended up winning the league quite convincingly. So I think my main vibe in regards to this game is that both managers are extremely tactical and are going to be very aware of the other team's strengths and weaknesses. I think Arsenal are going to have the advantage when it comes to physicality, especially in the center of the park with Rice and, well, it would have been Partey if he wasn't suspended, but the likes of Rice and maybe Marino, Odegaard, Lewis Skelly perhaps against the more diminutive João Neves, Vitinha, and Fabian Ruiz. And then the obvious advantage for Arsenal is going to be at set pieces, I think. And I know you're going to talk about corners a bit later on, so I won't get into that. But PSG's advantages are more, the speed, the technical ability they have in transition. In the middle of the park, they've got absolute standout technical ability. They've probably got the best wing backs in the world. And, that front three, any 3 or 4 that they choose to play are extremely dynamic and pacey. And I think Arteta's going to be concerned about that. So if I imagine how Arteta might try and approach this game, it might be a bit of a Pep-esque kind of control strategy, where Arsenal, unlike the first leg, do look to keep possession and control the game, but at the same time, they're likely to be very wary of PSG in transition on the counter. What is that likely to lead to in terms of what's the result of the game going to be? I've kind of landed completely against the stats. I know Dan likes to talk about the draw stats, and Nigel likes to give him quite a bit of banter about the poor record he's got in tipping up draws so far in this year's Champions League. I mean, it's truly atrocious. There have been 25 draws from 184 group stage games, which is less than 1 in 7. And then you would think that would turn around for the knockout stage onwards, but no, 7 from 40 draws. 1 in 6. It's really, really very low and hard to take the tie with any confidence. But at the end of the day, this is a Champions League semi-final first leg with 2 very tactically astute managers. And if you look at kind of recent season data, if you go over the past 4 seasons, we've seen 3 draws from 8 opening semi-final first legs, which is, roughly in line with a plus 250 tie price. But if you take out the 2 matches where there was an extreme favourite, so I'm talking a minus 200 upwards moneyline favourite, you get 3 draws from 6 first legs. And obviously that's more like a 50-50 chance. And I'm not saying this is a 50-50 chance to finish as a tie. But what I am saying is, if I had to pick one of the outcomes at the prices, I would be with the tie at a pretty big looking plus 250. And so that's kind of how I feel. I want to take a side and to nail my colours to the mast. And I did that in Arsenal Real Madrid. I really felt confident that Arsenal were the better team. And going into the first leg of that tie, it was very similarly priced. Arsenal were about plus 110 and minus money on the minus a quarter. And I had a very strong view there. But I think PSG are a far superior team. And I think the incorrect price there was Arsenal were too big against Real Madrid, but I don't think they are necessarily here.
No, it's very interesting. I mean, the way I look at the 2 11s that are likely to go on the field in the first leg. And I mean, for me, the PSG 11 is better. Matches, of course, are not won on paper. It's about the team, as you said. Tactics and all sorts of things. But compared to the first meeting in the group stage, which may or may not be relevant because the teams knew they had 8 matches to qualify, things like that. But Calafiori started that game. Gabriel started that game for Arsenal. Kai Havertz did as well. And Thomas Partey. They're all missing, or Calafiori is a major doubt, at least. On top of that, Gabriel Jesus is out. Jorginho's out. Tomiyasu, although he's hardly been on the field all season, really, has he? So I think those are some significant losses there. Gabriel especially. I mean, I think he's one of the best centre-backs in the world, and he's massive for his club. So, PSG have obviously come on a lot since then as well. So based on that, I think my colours would be... I'd be lining towards PSG, I think, certainly over the 2 legs. And in this first match here, I mean, Arsenal are now plus 116. This is live on air right now. The tie's plus 235. Yeah, I think the tie's possible here. I mean, I did my research on the first legs as well. And I've went back the last 8 years, not including the COVID year. First legs of semi-finals, 6 home wins, 5 draws, 5 away wins. 7 out of 16 games have gone over 2.5 goals. 8 out of 16, both teams to score, yes. Just 3 out of 16 have gone over 3.5. Bear that one in mind. So if you're looking at higher goal lines, that's probably unlikely. But the last 0-0 we had in the first leg of a Champions League semi-final was the 26th of April 2016. Manchester City against Real Madrid. I definitely cannot remember that game. Don't know if anyone here can. I don't know if you can remember what you were doing in April 2016, Will. But so it's quite a long time since there was a 0-0 in the first leg of the Champions League. That surprised me.
I think maybe Nigel's the only man on the planet that does remember that game, because I think his radar would have been buzzing. But yeah, I can't remember it either, mate.
Yeah, so but I mean, actually, that's the last 0-0 in any semi-final, including second legs. Although second legs ending 0-0 are much less likely, of course. So I couldn't really find an edge there in terms of that. I mean, the goal line is over 2.5, under 2.5 at -112. Pick your side, and I think it's capable of going over. I mean, the 1-1 is very much in play. 2-1 in either direction, I suppose, especially to Arsenal, is very, very likely. I just couldn't, in terms of over-under, I have to literally toss a coin for me, Will, in this one. I don't know. What do you think on the over-under line?
I've got a very slight lean under, based off, one, the magnitude of the occasion, and two, how I think Arteta will approach this. But I could be wrong about how he approaches it. But a lean under, and it may have been a bet if Thomas Partey were fit. If Thomas Partey were fit, I would feel more confident about the defensive setup of Arsenal. But I think with him out, Arteta has to rejig something, most likely as he brings Merino back into midfield and starts Trossard. But doing that weakens you defensively. I think indisputably that weakens you defensively. If he wants to go a bit more defensive, perhaps he can bring Lewis Skelly into midfield and start Ben White at right back and Timber at left back, or vice versa, or something a bit more defensive. But I don't think he'll do that. I think, conventional approach would be to just replace Merino, replace Partey with Trossard, and bring Merino back into the midfield. And so, I'm just not that confident about unders, especially given it's PSG. Like, PSG are, some people think Arsenal are an unders team, and I think maybe I'd agree with that relative to other top sides. But PSG are definitely an overs team. And yes, they beat up a lot of not so good teams in Ligue 1, but they also do it in the Champions League. All four of those games against two games against Villa in the previous round, and the 2 games against Liverpool in the round of 16. Really, all 4 of those should have gone over 2.5. 2 did, the 2 Villa games. But certainly the second leg against Liverpool should have gone over. Arguably the first leg too. And we saw 2 goals in total, but PSG are an overs team. Their attacking weapons and in transition, they worry the hell out of me. Gabriel being missing would worry me as an Arsenal fan. Probably the most important player in this kind of matchup. I mean, I'm sure Arsenal fans would argue with me there. Saka and Rice are more important. But he is definitely one of the most important players. But look, at the end of the day, you're getting plus money on or around about plus money on under 2.5 in a Champions League semi-final first leg. You gave out the stats. There was only 1.1 total XG in the league stage game they played in October. So I think I'd lean under, but definitely not good enough for a bet.
Under 2.75 goals is -148. The chances of you losing your full stake based on those stats is not very high if you were to take that bet. But -148 is not for everyone. 68% of the money on the over-under market is on the over. That's not a significant chunk. That's a pretty balanced amount, especially as overs tend to be back more than unders in general. In terms of the money line, 76% of the money is on Arsenal, 72% of the tickets on Arsenal. It's an edge, but not huge. There's going to be a lot of differences of opinions here. I'm thinking about PSG plus a quarter of a goal here at -106. The 1-1 draw is now sticking in my mind, Will. The 1-1 draw sticking in my head here. I don't know. I'm just sort of, something's pointing me in that direction. I feel that would both teams accept that maybe in the right circumstances? PSG would. I don't think Arsenal perhaps can, but maybe they would in the right. I don't know. It depends how the match goes, really.
So for me, I was thinking 1-1 as well, but it's probably it's probably the shortest odds out of all correct scores. Just having a quick through now, the Bet Rivers correct score pricer. It looks like 1-1 is the plus 480. I mean, backing a correct score at plus 480, you've got to be a braver man than me. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe if there's a slow start and it's 0-0 after 15 minutes or so, that'll be plus 600. Maybe. Who knows? But it does feel like it's that kind of correct score, doesn't it?
I mean, as per usual, you go down into sort of the prop markets and the side markets, and that's where sometimes the best value is the higher profile match. That we have, and I think this is perhaps the case here. We've got to talk about corners and we've got to talk about shots, possibly some player props as well, because there's been a lot of questions about those in the chat. I'll start things off with corners, and I know that Foxy was on about looking at under corners, but on the first newsletter this week, do subscribe to the Betting Weekly newsletters, by the way, including the Insider, which went an incredible 9-2, I think, last weekend. Then I've given out a same game parlay for this game, actually. I know you might laugh. SGP, Steve Wyss, doesn't happen too often, but I quite liked it, the combo. Over 3.5 corners for both teams. It was actually at plus money when I gave it out yesterday morning. Now it's actually minus 121 now. And the main corner line is at 10.5. And I wouldn't get involved in the 10.5 corner line. I feel like that could be right bang on the number, but I do think this is going to be quite an evenish game. And I think both teams are capable of getting 4 corners. PSG shoot a lot. That's been mentioned in chat. And if we go by the stats and by the style, that's probably not going to change. And teams that shoot a lot do tend to win a lot of corners. It's just the way things go. Deflections, saves, everything. In terms of Arsenal, PSG averaged, I think, over 7 corners per game in the Champions League, by the way, for those who are stats-based. Arsenal averaged nearly 6 corners per game in the Champions League. We know they've got a massive threat from set pieces. They would be quite happy winning corners. Whether PSG are happy to let them have the corners is a different matter. They might really funnel them inside, and that then would reduce the chances of corners. But just based on that, in the Arsenal, I think, will play for them for a bit and PSG naturally obtain them, then I don't think it's asking a lot for over 3.5 corners for both teams and that SGP. In terms of the overall match line now at 10.5, I think that's pretty set fair. And I think you were saying off air that that's a pretty canny sort of line, really. It can perhaps suck people in. Where are you feeling in the corners for the game in terms of betting, but also the style of both teams, Will?
Yeah, I wanted to try and find an angle into Arsenal over corners, but then I went and looked at the line and I went and looked at the stats. Arsenal's most recent stats in the Champions League. Now, corners is not, I should really caveat this with the fact that corners is not a market I would normally look at. This is a one-off match, and taking this one game in isolation, as bettors, we have the luxury of thinking about things in a bit more depth and looking into all of the different markets on offer. And I had a quick look at corners, wanting to be with Arsenal. I just think they will realise that is probably their best chance of scoring. PSG concede 38% of their goals from set pieces, which is just seems massive.
That many?
Yeah, 38%. Yeah, so Arsenal are going to be targeting that. And, it's kind of, there are things you can do to give yourself a higher chance of being given corners than free kicks, right? You can, like you say, you can shoot more, you can play from out wide and look to get crosses in, as opposed to kind of like taking the more controlled approach. And maybe Arteta goes that route, but I'm not so confident about that. I just kind of saw it as a potential angle. But then I looked at the line and I did think 10.5 total, 5.5 Arsenal. Interestingly, PSG were 4.5, I believe, which I also think was quite cannily set because they do generate a lot of corners. And yes, they're away from home. And yes, you'd argue that Arsenal, the onus is on Arsenal to kind of like play a bit more aggressively here on the front foot. But, those lines looked pretty well set to me. I've found some angles into other props, but let's continue with the corners, because I know I think you've got an official bet on the corners, don't you, Steve?
Well, that is an official bet. I gave it on the newsletter. It's the same game parlay, over 3.5 corners for both teams. Yeah. It's at minus 121 now. I still think that's a bet. Over 10.5 corners is now minus money. It was plus money when we came on air. So the corners have been backed in the last, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, Will. So there's a lot. I mean, that's actually, you don't often get over 10.5 corners at minus money in a Champions League semi-final. So there's a lot of, I don't know whether it's data driven or what, but I mean, the other thing is, in terms of the actual strength of both teams, is a lot is cutting inside, right? There's a massive danger from these players cutting inside. It might be to the advantage, actually forcing these players out wide and conceding corners.
Yeah.
It's actually maybe safer to deal with the corners in some ways, certainly from an Arsenal perspective, conceding corners.
Yeah, well, maybe not so much from a PSG perspective, but
well, they can't really win, can they, PSG then? Because we know they're vulnerable from set pieces, but they don't want Bukayo Saka cutting inside at them. So
I would say that's the lesser of two evils from their perspective. I don't know. I don't know whether I'm overrating the likes of Desiree Doué and Kvaratskhelia versus Saka and Martinelli, but yeah, Doué and Kvaratskhelia cutting inside to me feels a bit more scarier than Saka and Martinelli doing that versus the potential threat from the Arsenal set piece. But yeah, it's just an intriguing matchup all around. So many talented wide players on show, isn't there?
Yeah, fascinating that we've had such a discussion about corners there. I don't think me and you ever had. We even talked about corners before.
Steve likes over 3.5 for both teams.
Yeah, I think that's asking a lot. I don't think that's asking a lot. We could go well under. There could be 8 corners here, 4 each, and I win. In terms of the main corner, I do think it will go over 10.5. I think it's the sort of game we could see 5 or 6 corners for both teams. Not crazy numbers, but over the mark. What about player props then, Will? I mean, I had a good look here, and I was struggling, but I'm sure something probably caught your eye. You become a bit of a shot on target king this season. I've just got some data before we go on here. There has been the biggest percentage of player prop handle. Achraf Hakimi over 1.5 shots, 17% of the handle on him. Vitinha to have just a shot, 7% of the handle on that. And there's also been some decent money on Kvaratskhelia over 0.5 shots on target. And Dembele's been looked at in the shots market as well. Is there a player that you might like here at all?
I was looking forward to getting my teeth sunk into this market as per usual. But sadly, the PSG players are priced up at similar prices as they were versus Villa in that second leg. And that is disappointing. The Bet Rivers traders are definitely more on it this week. If you think about like the defensive capabilities of Arsenal versus Villa as a comparison, Arsenal have the lowest shots on target against per 90 in this year's competition. They concede 2.42 shots on target per 90 minutes, which is very, very low. And Villa in comparison, 4.92. So Villa concede at least twice as many shots on target per 90 in the competition than Arsenal, yet the PSG players are similar odds to register over 0.5 shots on target in the market today as they were versus Villa. That doesn't make sense to me. And so I can't touch officially any of the PSG players. The ones that interest me the most are the usual suspects. Desiree Doué, and I might be tweeting a hashtag Desiree at some point tonight if I can't resist the temptation to get involved. But Desiree Doué, I'm not going to talk any more about him. I've already talked enough on.
That's the next shirt that's going to go on that chair behind you, right? Desiree Doué. He's one of your favorites.
I couldn't do that to Andres. I think Andres, maybe Leo at some point. I think I've got a Leo shirt actually on order from my wife for my birthday. It was my birthday a few weeks ago. But enough said about that. No, Andres will always take pride position there in the background. And Hakimi actually is the other one that interests me, plus 220. Obviously, he had a goal and I think more than one shot on target in that second leg against Villa. I don't think Arsenal will allow him the same space. They're not chasing the game like Villa will. I think they'll be acutely aware of his threat. So 220 is a bit skinny. It was the same price against Villa. And Desiree Doué is minus 110 today. He was minus 121 against Villa. So I'm not being tempted in. Arsenal, again, hard to find an Arsenal player. But the one that I think is the most interesting proposition is actually Declan Rice. Because obviously he's going to be on a lot of direct free kicks. And that when you're plus 150 to have one or more shots on target, that's huge. Problem is he might play a bit deeper given Partey's missing. The most likely thing is that Arteta will pull Rice back into the DM and play Merino in midfield a bit more advanced, and that would scupper the 150, I think, shot on target for Rice. But he's plus 245 to score or assist in the specials market on Bet Rivers, and he's on corners. And PSG concede 38% of their goal from set pieces. So I think Declan Rice at plus 245 to score or assist is very interesting. His stats aren't actually as bad as you'd imagine for a deep-lying midfielder or a box-to-box midfielder. 4 goals, 2 assists from 90 minutes so far in the Champions League this season, which is a lot more than you would think. Yeah, he's got the 2 free kick goals against Real Madrid, obviously. So yeah, it's as simple as that, really. PSG concede 38% of their goal from set pieces. How can you target that? Well, unfortunately, Gabriel's out. Otherwise, Gabriel to score would be interesting. They seem to have, the designated man seemed to be Kirior against, who did they play at the weekend? Whoever they played at the weekend. Was it?
Palace last weekend, wasn't it?
Seemed that Kirior was the designated set piece target at the weekend. Might be him again. But yeah, he's pretty skinny. I think he's plus 340 to score any.
Saliba doesn't seem to have many shots anymore. Even with Gabriel out of the team, he would be. I mean, someone's put that. I think Sarkly there. He has struggled with his. But I mean, he would for me be the one. But maybe PSG. Maybe he's so obvious that PSG right, we'll make sure he's not going to get involved, especially as a Frenchman. So it leaves the coast clear for someone else, perhaps under the radar, to do that. I wonder what exact odds Rice would be to have a shot on target from a free kick if anyone did offer that market.
I didn't see that. That market's definitely not currently on Bet Rivers.
No,
but probably be, I don't know. Probably plus 300, maybe.
300, yeah. I'd actually probably. Would I take that bet? I mean, they are going to be playing for free kicks, and PSG will be desperate to keep it clean in that area of the field. I mean, they're a very clean team.
That's the counterpoint, isn't it?
Yeah. So
PSG will not want to concede free kicks in that area because recency bias will tell them it's not a good idea. But I'm just looking at some of the comments, Steve. Foxfee. The fouls drawn market, that's an interesting market that I really wanted to look at and didn't get time to. I think that's an interesting market for bettors because I think we've got lots of very skillful wide players and midfielders and real players all over the pitch. The players I'd be looking at, the obvious ones are Desiree Doué, Kvaratskhelia, Saka, Martinelli. Maybe the bigger price, kind of like Jurrien Timber, Lewin Martin Skelly. I got completely butchered his name, but anyway, everybody knows who I mean. Who else? Maybe some of the Vitinha's got to draw a foul, at least one foul. I think there are many candidates.
This is a referee, by the way, and I'll talk about. Someone did ask me about the referee, and it's Slovan Vincic, who I'll be honest, I've grown very, very tired of this referee because he has no pattern to his play now. He has this reputation, he's been brought in for a lot of big games to basically lower the card count. The Turkish FA brought him in for Galatasaray Fenerbahce. He dished 7 in that game, which was below the card line. He only gave 3 in the Inter Milan against Bayern Munich game. He hasn't given a red card for a long time in a European game, well over a year now. So this is a ref that he doesn't really want to give cards unless he has to, but he does have a high foul count. Averages consistently around 25 fouls or more per game. So there will be fouls here. He'll blow his whistle for fouls. So you find the right player, for fouls drawn or fouls committed. It's Lewis Jones has talked about that on some of the live shows he's been in. That's really his sort of market. The fouls has never really been my sort of thing. Sometimes I've looked into it, but I know there'll be people. I mean, there's loads of great comments on here. I've not been able to go through them all. But there's been some brilliant stuff. I've been reading them all. And, there will be angles. I mean, Lewis Skelly, I think, is an example of a player who's very, very clever for his age. Yeah. He knows how to draw a foul. If he was actually playing in midfield, and there's still a chance he might, then I would fancy a lot more fouls against him because he's right in the heart of the action. But he
kind of does. He inverts, right? So he kind of and that kind of transition from the left back position to the inverted left back midfield. He kind of often bursts with the ball from left back into midfield, and within that burst, he's kind of muscling his way past a couple of opposition players. So I can see. I think I don't know what price he is, but I think that would be the type of area I would be looking. And you mentioned Slavko Vincic. My bet of the day is actually on, believe it or not, cards.
So this is your best bet of the day.
Yeah,
now, on cards. Yeah. Will White.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever looked at cards before in my life. So please take it with a huge caveat of I might be completely useless at analyzing these markets. But yeah, Vincic, I've just got a feeling that UEFA have kind of passed down the directive to be a bit lenient in the knockout stages. 5 of the 8 quarterfinal went under 3.5 cards. PSG, 11 from the last 14 have gone under 3.5. Arsenal, 10 from the last 12 have gone under 3.5. 4 players are on yellows and risk suspension for the second leg. And PSG are the least carded team in the Champions League this season, averaging 0.91 per 90. Now, I know most of their matches will have been against teams that perhaps aren't as good as Arsenal, although from memory, they played quite a few very strong teams in the group stage. And then obviously since then have had Liverpool and Villa. So maybe that stat is relevant. But, Slavko Vincic himself, he refereed this game actually back in October, the corresponding fixture. 2 yellows, 1 for each team. 3.5 just seems like a line where unders should be pretty strong favourite, and at -113 seems worth a go from a very much part-time under overcards analyst.
I kind of agree. I don't think he's going to want to show the cards. No one wants to give cards in a semi-final. Certainly no one wants to give a red card in a semi-final unless they have to. Under 1.5 PSG cards is -108 for those interested in that one. Incredibly clean record. I can't believe how clean they've been. It's absurd to say, 11 yellows and 1 red in 14 Champions League games. How's that? I mean, even it doesn't matter if you're dominant. Back chat, things like that, stupid dissent, time wasting. I can't believe that.
It's Luis Enrique. It's got to be Luis Enrique. You can imagine Luis Enrique having some innovative way of communicating an idea to his squad to kind of the fine margins, right? The kind of, you can give away fouls, but this is the type of foul that's okay to give away. But this, like Pep used to do with City, famously always used to kind of find a way of stopping the opponent in transition, but not get carded for it. Or, maybe City are a bit more blatant and would get carded for it. But yeah, it's hard to deny the data. It's a pretty big sample. Well, it's not a statistically significant sample, but what did you say? 11 cards in 12 games. I mean,
11 yellows, 1 red in 14 Champions League games this season, which is is it 12 or 14? I've lost count. But
I think it's 14.
It's because they played the playoff match, didn't they? They played the playoff match. So I mean, based on that, there's got to be something in the waters there where he's telling them, and that could really help them here today if they don't certainly give away. They'll be looking not to give away fouls in those central areas close to the penalty box based on that Real Madrid game. So that's your best bet of the game, under 3.5 cards. That same game parlay for me at both teams to have over 3.5 corners. Now -130 actually. Still think it's a bet. Hopefully some got on the newsletter when it came out at a bigger price. We'll just briefly touch on tomorrow's game. Barca, Inter. Me and Nigel are going to go through this one in depth tomorrow. But I'm interested where you sort of rank both of these two teams, Will, really, more than anything. We know you're a big Barca fan. You're going to have a few maybe in, extra things about this game that we might not touch on. Now, Barcelona are significantly favourites on the to qualify market, -250. I think that would be where I'm coming at here. Is that justified, or are Inter Milan underrated? I honestly think Inter have been underrated throughout the whole tournament, and I still think they might be here.
Yeah, I think so too. Obviously a lot's going to be made of Inter getting knocked out of Coppa Italia and potentially of the title race over the weekend with a deserved loss to at home to Roma, pretty much handing Napoli the title if they win it out from here. But I don't know, it might be a blessing in disguise for them. Inzaghi's always rotated in Champions League, and this might just be the moment where he has to go all. I mean, obviously, he kind of has to go all in here. And I think they've struggled with injuries and suspensions. They've lost a lot of key players, DeMarco in particular, Thuram, Bastoni. They've had a lot of injuries and suspensions. I think Thuram's back here, and I wouldn't be surprised if Inzaghi just throws him in. And I think Inter are the type of team that could frustrate Barca. I've read some previews from other sources, people saying that Inter are a good matchup for Barca. I disagree. I think the kind of Inter sitting back and looking to hit Barca on the counter is potentially Barca's kryptonite. And really, like, if I look at my model ratings, Barca are the better team, yes. They're certainly, the more eye-catching team. They've got the more obvious weapons. But, that Italian knockout tie attitude and streetwiseness, I think Inter have that, and plus a goal. I think that's the main Asian handicap line, plus a goal. I think Inter plus a goal is one that you just have to bet. Might be a bit uncomfortable, but as to who goes through, obviously Barca should be favourites, but at -200 odds, I think it's a bit too short.
Confident as a fan? Barca can make the final? They win the whole thing? Heart over head here?
I'm kind of embarrassed about how betting and markets takes precedent over my fandom these days. And I want to be a more vociferous fan, like I used to be. But I haven't even started thinking about it as a fan yet. So that's where I'm at. I think what will happen is when it kicks off, or maybe in the hour leading up to kickoff, I'll become a fan. But at the moment, it's only thinking about it analytically, which is, a little bit sad.
I really like under 3 goals Asian in that game. So the guys in comments have got... I have a knack of getting sucked into unders with Barcelona, and I do get burnt a bit. Maybe Nigel can talk me out of it and get on the overs tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? Do join us on the show tomorrow where we're going to discuss that. Just before we go, there is a Swedish game. I know a lot have been waiting for this one. The Allsvenskan, we've got a great game. This is actually my bet of the day, clearly my bet of the day. That's why it's on the sheet here, Will. Malmo against Osters. And Malmo are a big favourite here, but I actually don't believe that they are favoured enough. They are a -1.75 Asian handicap favourite. For me, Malmo are the best team in Sweden, and Oster, I think is the actual pronunciation of them. They're the worst team. And I believe they'll cover a -1.75 Asian handicap. This is where my ladder comes out as well. I may well be going -2.5 on the Asian line because Malmo need a win. They are actually not doing as well as expected. They've had a tough fixture list. I actually think deliberately the Swedish FA gave them a tough fixture list because they wanted them to drop points at the start of the season early, make it a more competitive title race. That's my conspiracy theory in me. But I mean, I just look at Oster. Oster away from home have conceded 66 shots in 3 games, 24 on target. Incredibly, they have only lost all 3 away games by 1 goal margin. Now, I've seen some of these. They've been battered, really, and I cannot see how Malmo don't win the game comfortably. I mean, they've got the problem with Malmo is they've got the squad's too big. It's almost too good a squad, Will. You can't keep everyone happy, and he's been doing some unnecessary rotation, so I couldn't really get involved in player props. But here's some stats for you. Last season, 10 wins by 2 goals or more in the 2024 campaign. 7 of those were before their European campaign started, so they have a knack this time of year of winning big. The same in 2023, 12 wins out of in a 30-game season by 2 goals or more. Regularly known for racking up the score. They've got players going to come off the bench who are hungry. I think Malmo win big here. And I even looked at, I think this could be 4-5-0, even 6-0. 5-0 is 20-1. I think you could do worse if you're looking for a correct score. A lot of people mentioning Botheim here. I mean, the 2 big strikers, Botheim and Kieser Tellin, haven't scored a goal yet for them this season, I don't think. I mean, these 2 guys are incredible marksmen. They might start together. We have to wait until the lineups. You'd imagine at least one, if not both, will score here. Another player worth looking out for is Tahar Ali, especially from the bench. This guy just loves eating up crap teams, Will. He's so good against crap teams. And Oster, I think, are one of those sides who I fear for them today. Minus 1.75 Malmo. Better the day for me. Are you tempted?
I love it. I love the... that's never the type. You see, that's never the type of bet that a model-based player, rating-based gambler would ever be able to find, right? Because a model will just be like, well, it should be minus 1.5 or minus 1.75 based off, this underlying data. But when you introduce the specific knowledge of the teams, and I like the seasonal trend as well, the kind of pre-European competition breakdown, sounds good to me. Just looking at go through the comments, if you allow me to just run through the comments, because I think there's some really good ones.
There has been today.
Ginetti there, he's agreeing that Inter the worst matchup for Barca. Yeah, that's just how I feel about it. I don't know what it is, but it's just the defensive solidity of Inter. I just feel like it's dangerous. Fox V is saying, Thuram's out. Well, I'll have a beer. I'll have a beer against Fox V that Thuram plays tomorrow. And actually, I'll take that he starts. So, yeah. One of us will owe the other a beer or coffee if you don't drink. Shakespeare's there as well. Let's bring that up again, because
there he is. Yeah, he's mentioning pints as well. A couple of pints.
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
just Chisholm, the New York Yankees have a home run plus 525 against the Orioles. So yeah, always good to see Shakespeare in chat. If it is to be a pint, Foxy, and make sure it's an expensive one. Something a guest beer around 10 quid a pint or something like that. Just before we go as well, Betting Weekly newsletter, do subscribe. If you're new to the channel today and you've joined us for the first ever time, you may well have done. It's a Champions League semi-final. Then do hit the like button, do hit the subscribe button if you're willing to do that. And do subscribe to the Betting Weekly newsletter. We have 2 newsletters a week. The Insider, which goes out ahead of the weekend, has been going great guns of late. Incredible 9-2 record on the last Insider. No surprise, James Eastham is top of that leaderboard already on the handicappers table. It's going to be sensational. But as my doorbell rings, I'm not sure. I'm due a mechanic actually at the door, but it might not be the mechanic here, Will. So, car troubles. But, before we go, remind people of your best bet of the day.
It is under 3.5 cards, minus 113. If you want a little bit more safety, you can same game parlay under 4.5 cards and under 1.5 first half goals, and that's minus 120. I think that's pretty decent as well. So cards and unders, kind of first half goals.
Yeah, I mean, my lean would be that 1-1 draw. I do. If you're looking for a correct score, a bit of pizza money, I would look at that. I think we're both kind of leaning under 2.5 just. The corners, I do like over 3.5 corners for both teams. Same game parlay. It's now minus 130 with Bet Rivers. I do think both teams can get at least 4 corners. And then, like I say, get on that Malmo handicap tonight to win big against Oster. Who's on the show tomorrow? That is me and Nigel Seeley. James Eastham is with me on Thursday. Jack Wright is going to be on the show on Friday. But, Will, that was a great pleasure. I mean, I don't think I've ever picked your brains about corners and stuff before, fouls and stuff like that. It was an incredible breakdown of the game. Thanks, everyone who joined on the comments. There's loads of great comments. I couldn't get through them all. There were so many. And best of luck for everyone who's taking. And more than anything, enjoy the game. Enjoy the game. These are moments to be enjoyed as well. We want to make money on it, but you want to enjoy these games and check out in-play value. There's always some in-play potential in these semi-finals. So we look forward to your assessment ahead of the second leg next week, which will be on your team. Barca against Inter Milan on the Tuesday, I do believe.
Yeah, look forward to it too, Steve. But let's take it one step at a time and take care of tonight. And I'm sure you guys will do a a great job tomorrow. But yeah, we've managed to talk for 50 minutes about
I
one
know.
game, which is, well, there's the Alscalan game as well. But yeah, pretty impressive.
Incredible. Yeah. Well, take care, everyone. Remember to gamble responsibly, and I'll see you tomorrow on Betting Weekly Live with Nigel. Remember, Betting Weekly Tennis Live follows in an hour and 10 minutes on the channel. Nigel is on with Dustin Fox, so do check that out in an hour and 10 minutes. See you around.